I'm Adam Grove, and I'm about to show you something that's going to make you question every garden decision you've ever made. There's a simple method that Japanese farmers use to grow massive harvests using less space, less water, and less work than you're currently putting in. And once you understand it, you won't be able to unsee it. Your neighbors are probably doing what you're doing: separate rows for each vegetable, constant watering, endless weeding, and harvests that feel way too small for the effort involved. But somewhere across the world, farmers are getting 3 times more food from the exact same amount of space, without working any harder. How? They're not using expensive gadgets or fancy chemicals. They've simply figured out something Western agriculture forgot. Plants work better together than alone. If you want to learn how to design a garden that practically runs itself, hit that subscribe button right now. We're breaking down the exact system that's going to transform your growing season. And please like and share this with someone who's tired of spending their weekends in the garden without seeing real results. Let me be direct about what's happening in your garden right now. Every single weekend, you're out there repeating the same cycle. You've got tomatoes in one spot, carrots in another, lettuce somewhere completely separate. Everything's organized in clean lines, which looks nice, but it's working against your success. Here's why that matters. You're treating your garden like a factory assembly line instead of a living system. You water certain plants on certain days, you fertilize when something looks weak, you spend hours pulling weeds from the bare soil between your vegetables. You're investing serious time and money into this, and your harvest still arrives later than it should. The real issue is this: you've designed a system that requires constant care. You're basically running a garden that's always broken and always demanding your attention. Western agriculture taught us this approach: planting one species by itself, leaving all that empty dirt exposed, treating each plant like it's supposed to stand alone. That system works, it just doesn't work well. Take a walk through any forest. Do you see organized rows of single plant types? Do you see patches of completely bare earth? Of course not. You see dozens of different plants living in the same small area. They have roots going different depths. Their leaves reach different heights. Everything connects in ways that have worked for centuries without anyone adding fertilizer or pulling weeds. That's not random. That's a working system, and Japanese vegetable farmers have essentially copied that design for their gardens. They're not growing individual plants, they're growing plant communities, where each species has a specific job that helps its neighbors grow faster. Here's what people typically miss. Speed in gardening doesn't come from more water or more fertilizer. It comes from designing systems where plants naturally meet each other's needs. When you plant beans near corn, the beans grab nitrogen from the air and convert it into something corn roots can eat. When you plant herbs like basil near tomatoes, the herbs repel insects that slow tomatoes down while drawing in insects that speed them up. Meanwhile, you're planting tomatoes by themselves, spending your Saturday morning picking bugs off one by one. Different approach, different results. Here's where the real advantage appears. The dirt under a polyculture garden is biologically alive in ways that single-crop soil can never be. When you grow just one crop, you've got one type of root system pulling nutrients from one soil layer. Everything below that just sits there, not doing much. In a polyculture setup, you've got shallow-rooted lettuce, medium-depth beans, and deep-rooted tomatoes all occupying the same space at the same time. Each root system creates different relationships with fungal networks. Every plant releases different compounds that activate different bacterial colonies. The result is soil that's genuinely alive. Living soil grows plants faster than dead dirt, no matter how much bagged product you pour onto it. This is proven biology, not theory. Think about the most successful polyculture combination in history: the Three Sisters. Indigenous growers across the Americas used this for thousands of years before modern agriculture arrived. You grow corn, beans, and squash together in one bed. The corn grows tall and becomes a natural climbing structure for the beans. The beans pull nitrogen from the air and deposit it in the soil where both the corn and squash can reach it. The squash spreads its large leaves across the ground, creating a natural mulch that blocks weeds, keeps moisture in, and makes the area uncomfortable for pests that want bare ground. 3 crops, 1 space, each one making the others grow faster. You've got corn in one area, beans somewhere else, squash in a third location. You're using 3 times the space and getting weaker results. Let me show you exactly what happens inside a Three Sisters bed that never happens in isolated rows.
The corn develops thick, strong stalks because it's getting steady nitrogen from the beans climbing it. The beans grow quickly because they're capturing nitrogen from the air rather than fighting corn for soil nutrients. Plus, they're getting support without you building anything. The squash leaves spread across moist, cool soil instead of baking on exposed dirt. They lose less water and focus energy on growth instead of survival. And here's the pest defense. The insects looking to destroy a field of only corn can't find your corn easily because it's surrounded by beans and squash that confuse their senses. You've created a system where plants protect and feed each other automatically. That's the speed advantage. Now, let's look at what's actually happening underground, because this is where people think it's folklore. It's not. These are specific, observable mechanisms. Bean plants grow bacteria nodules on their roots that pull nitrogen gas directly from the air and convert it into ammonia compounds that plants can actually use. This is called nitrogen fixation. Some of that nitrogen stays in the nodules. A big portion leaks into the surrounding soil. Corn and squash growing just a few inches away get fresh nitrogen without you adding anything. You don't get this benefit from growing beans by themselves because there's nothing nearby to use that nitrogen except other beans that are already making their own. Companion planting isn't magic or old folklore. It's plant biology applied strategically. When you plant carrots and radishes together, the radishes germinate in about 4 days. Their thick roots push right through compacted soil. Carrots take 10 to 14 days and have thread-thin roots that struggle in hard earth. By the time carrot seedlings emerge, radishes have already loosened everything. 3 weeks later, you harvest the radishes and suddenly your carrots have open channels to expand through. That's why companion-planted carrots grow faster and straighter than carrots planted alone. The radishes did physical work that saved the carrots weeks of slow expansion. This is where polyculture design becomes a powerful defensive tool that removes hours of manual pest management. Most garden pests find their target plants through smell. A hornworm moth flying over your garden catches the scent of tomatoes and lands to lay eggs. That moth's senses evolved to detect tomato smell in complex ecosystems with hundreds of competing odors. When you plant rows of just tomatoes, you create a scent beacon that's impossible to miss. It's like putting up a neon sign that screams buffet. When you surround tomatoes with basil, marigolds, and onions, you bury that tomato smell under layers of competing scents. The moth flies over, gets confused, and moves on to somewhere easier. You didn't spray anything, you didn't pick off a single larva, you designed a system that makes your crops harder to find. The same approach works with helpful insects too. A monoculture offers one flower type at one time of year. Pollinators and predatory insects visit during that bloom period, then leave because there's nothing else for them. A polyculture with staggered blooming times creates continuous habitat for beneficial insects. Those insects stay because there's always something flowering, always pollen or nectar available. When aphids show up on your lettuce, ladybugs and lacewings are already living in your bed because you gave them a reason to stick around. Let's talk about structural support because you're probably paying for something you could get for free. When you grow pole beans or climbing peas or cucumbers, you usually build trellises or buy cages or string together support systems. That requires money and work. In polyculture systems, tall crops becomes the support structure for climbing crops. Corn stalks support beans. Sunflowers support peas. Tomatoes can support lighter vining crops on their existing cages. You get vertical growing space without buying or building anything additional. And here's what's interesting for people without much room. Polyculture design lets you stack crops vertically in ways monoculture design never allows. In a single 4x4 foot bed, you can grow tall crops in the center, medium crops in a ring around them, and ground cover crops at the edges. Corn in the middle, beans climbing the corn, tomatoes in the next ring, basil or rounded tomatoes, squash sprawling to the edges. That's 5 crops in 16 square feet, each occupying a different vertical layer and different root depth. No competition for space, just stacked functions. Compare that to your current system where you'd need 5 separate beds for those same crops. Start seeing why Japanese growers get 3 times the yield from the same land area. Now here's a reality nobody wants to talk about. Building effective polycultures requires you to actually understand what each plant does. You can't just throw random vegetables together and hope they cooperate. You need to know which crops pull nitrogen from the air, which provide climbing support, which sprawl and create living mulch, which draw helpful insects, and which repel harmful ones. This is where observation becomes more valuable than anything you can buy. Japanese growers spend time watching how plants interact, noticing which combinations thrive and which ones compete. They're not guessing, they're testing, observing, and repeating what works. Most people haven't learned this because you've been taught that gardening is about following instructions on seed packets, not about understanding how plants relate to each other. Here's what really separates fast-growing Japanese systems from your slow-growing beds: how fertility gets built and maintained. You're probably buying bagged fertilizer, dumping it a few times per season, watching plants respond for a couple weeks, then watching them slow down as nutrients disappear. This is expensive and temporary. You're treating fertility like a one-time shot instead of a continuous process. Japanese polyculture systems build fertility as a side effect of growing food. They're not buying inputs, they're creating fertility right on site through plant relationships and smart material management. Look at what's happening in your garden. You grow plants that pull nutrients from your soil. You physically remove those nutrients and compost them off-site. Then you buy back fertility in bag form to replace what you hauled away. You've created a system where you're constantly exporting nutrients and re-importing them at a cost. That's backwards. Japanese growers use a method called chop and drop that eliminates this entire wasteful loop. Chop and drop is exactly what it sounds like. When a crop finishes, or when you're trimming plants, you cut the material and drop it directly on the soil surface in the same bed where it grew. The material breaks down in place, feeding soil biology that will feed your next planting. You're not moving fertility off-site. You're not hauling bags back. You're keeping nutrients where they belong. Zero external inputs. The plant material becomes food for bacteria and fungi that break it down into forms your next crops can use. This happens continuously, which means your soil is always getting richer instead of cycling between depleted and temporarily fertilized. Here's where it gets really interesting. Living polycultures create chop and drop opportunities constantly without extra work. Those beans fixing nitrogen, when you harvest them, the roots stay in the ground and break down, leaving nitrogen-rich nodules that feed whatever grows next. That basil growing under your tomatoes? Clip it back regularly to stop it from flowering. Drop the clippings at the base of the tomato. You've just added a nitrogen-rich mulch layer that breaks down in weeks. Old squash leaves. Cut them off and leave them on the soil. They become food for the next generation of soil organisms. You're building fertility as you harvest, not depleting it. Most people think living mulch just suppresses weeds or keeps water in. It does both really well, but that's not the real value. Living mulch keeps roots in the soil constantly. When you have ground cover crops like clover or creeping thyme growing in between your main crops, those roots are releasing sugars and carbohydrates into the soil every single day. Those releases feed fungal networks that extend a nutrient-gathering range of every plant in the bed. The fungi trade nutrients with plant roots, creating a biological marketplace where nitrogen fixers share with heavy feeders. Deep-rooted plants pull up minerals that shallow-rooted plants can reach through the fungal network. You don't get any of this in bare soil, no matter how much fertilizer you add. Let's talk about succession planting, because this is where Japanese growers turn time into an advantage instead of a limitation. You probably plant everything in spring, harvest through summer, then let beds sit empty in fall and winter. You get one crop cycle per year from each bed. Japanese systems run multiple cycles by planting successions that take advantage of the fertility previous crops created. They plant fast radishes or lettuce, harvest in 3 to 4 weeks, drop the tops in place, then immediately put a longer season crop into soil that's richer than it was a month ago. Every 3 weeks, something gets harvested, something gets dropped, something gets planted. The bed never sits empty, and the soil gets richer with each cycle instead of more depleted. Here's the timeline. Week 1, plant radishes and lettuce. Week 4, harvest radishes and drop tops. Plant beans in the radish spaces. Week 7, harvest lettuce and drop residue. Plant tomato seedlings where lettuce was. Week 10, beans are flowering and fixing nitrogen while tomatoes establish. Week 16, harvest beans and drop the vines. Plant a fall kale crop where beans were. That's 4 crops from one bed in 20 weeks, each one leaving the soil richer for the next. You're getting 1 crop from the same bed in the same time frame, and your soil is weaker than when you started.
I know what you're thinking. This sounds perfect for someone with acres or a dedicated food forest, but you've got a small yard or maybe just some raised beds or containers on a balcony. Here's the reality. Polyculture design scales down better than monoculture design because it's based on relationships, not on how much space you have. A single 20-gallon container can hold a tomato plant, basil at the base, and marigolds around the edges. That's a functional polyculture that outperforms a container with just a tomato plant. The tomato gets pest protection and pollinator attraction from its companions. The basil gets shade from the tomato. The marigolds suppress soil pests with their root compounds. Same container, same soil, same water. Better results from all 3 plants. If you've got raised beds, you can run full 3 sisters combinations or tomato, basil, lettuce setups without changing your existing infrastructure. The only change is how you arrange plants within those beds. Instead of rows of single crops, you're planting in clusters where each plant supports the others. Here's your path forward. Pick 1 bed or 1 container. Choose 1 proven polyculture combination. 3 sisters if you have the space, tomato, basil, marigold if you don't. Plant it. Observe what happens over 8 weeks and compare the results to your monoculture beds. You'll see faster growth, fewer pest problems, less watering needed, and richer soil at harvest time. Once you see the difference, expand. Add another polyculture bed. Test a new companion combination. Start dropping crop residue instead of removing it. Within 1 growing season, you've shifted from someone constantly fighting their garden to someone designing a system that regulates itself. You're not struggling against nature anymore, you're working with it. Subscribe to Backyard Crops for more methods that actually work. Like this video and share it with someone tired of spending every weekend in the garden without results. Comment below with your current gardening setup. I want to know what you're working with. The Japanese figured this out centuries ago by watching ecosystems instead of fighting them. You can do the exact same thing with whatever space you have right now.